Hey everyone, welcome back to Burk's Garage. So what we're doing today is we're building a cross member for GYMRIGGED here. And for those of you that are not caught up yet, that was a 1961 GMC 5000 and we're converting it over to a P30 chassis, and we're talking 26 feet long. But in order to make this happen, we needed a cross member to set this 6-liter and NV 4500 over into this frame rail to make it functional. So what I'd like to do is take you along the steps of how we made it to this point. And basically that's going to be backing up to the point that we were using paper, cardboard, wood, steel to get to this point right here. So I'm hoping that you're enjoying this process as much as I am, and I'm ready to get this truck on the road here. So thanks for coming along and tuning in. So let's get this wrapped up. Let's go. So guys, whatever we come up with, it's got to be better than what we have right now. We don't even have a cross member. I mean, we've got something crossing the member, but no cross member. Is that a one golden power? I don't know. We gotta get to work. Let's get to work, Jimmy. Jimmy on the Jimmy. "34 inches.
Oh, shit.
Well, that's a stinker. Come on. Come on. Go.
Whenever you don't feel like working on your car, remember this famous quote.
Stop being a bitch and come on.
I've got the side rails that'll actually mount to the frame. We've got the runners that comes off of that, if that's the right term. And then the riser, need to measure that to get our transmission and engine setting at 3 degrees, just in case we ever decided to go back to an old school carburetor. So what I've come up with is, this is the 45 NV 4500 mount, and what I'm working with is a square tubing. So instead of trying to come up with an extension or a bolt-on, what I think will be the easiest is to keep that same location, but then weld a piece of angle to the outside of it. That'll basically give us where we can have the cross member have the extension on it that'll just bolt directly to that mount. So that seems to be the easiest path for me at this point. Then we'll go back and we'll trim it off 45 and clean it up a little bit, but we're looking at about a 10-inch piece that'll extend off of that lower cross member mount. So I think we're at the point that we're ready to get this trimmed out, because we've got the frame rail set about ride height, and then we've got the transmission pretty close to about 3 degrees from that, but we'll fine tune that, and then that'll give us that riser height so we can go ahead and get this thing dialed in. So let's get on it. All right, so now we'll just get a couple of holes drilled in place, get this seated down inside of there. So I've got the edges cleaned up on the mount. I got a couple of spot welds, and we'll do that when we put the gussets on the inside. So now I need to get a couple of holes drilled that'll line up with this trans cross member mount here, which we're sending. We just need to drill some holes. All right, so we're back. We got our ass kicked, but we got a mount here. So as you see, we need to do some fine tuning on it, weld a couple of spots up, get it cleaned up, prepared to weld to this cross member mount here. And again, the whole purpose of this is to allow the bolt holes to go all the way through this mount here, just bolt up, versus trying to separate this and extend, or drill this up, put extend. No, you just weld it to it when you put it. So let's get after it. All right, so when you get these bolts out of the way, so we can get the mount actually mounted on the transmission, and where we're currently at is we've got the frame setting at rod height, and we've got the engine and trans roughly 3 degrees from that point. So if we ever went back to a carburetor, we would have that pretty close to the carburetor specs. I've got a little screw jack here in place so I can raise and lower it to fine tune it once we get to that point. You're right, something didn't smell right. So let's take a little bit more caution here. I like that much better. All right, so we got our mount here that we'll be using, and the same size stock that'll be welded to, just because it's a little easier to handle. And if we put it on this side of it, well, that's not going to work because we'll then be hitting the transmission. So it looks like we're a dog in the corner here, and we're going to fight and make this happen on the front side of it. Put a couple of nuts on these two studs here. All right, so building off this concept here, this would be our lower bar that comes across that mount plate would be welded to. This right here, you would actually bolt on the inner side of the frame rail. I've got one side trimmed down to match the frame rail width here. This would sit on the opposite side of that, and each one would have a runner come across. And so at this point, it'd be something along these lines here. One more that'll come out this direction. This would have 4 holes drilled in it so it can bolt to the frame rail. Okay, quick update. So we got the bottom end and the first riser's 45. We've got them V'd out, ready to put a couple tack welds in it. So we'll do that now. Then we'll move on toward the overall frame width on the inside, which is just shy of 34 inches. So we'll get that measured out. And then we'll know our runner on the top. Then we just got to get our measurement from that runner down to the lower. I might be getting a little ahead of myself, but I'm ready to see this bracket mounted to this cross member. Fail. It's a lot closer. Don't crush my fingers. Well, spider arm don't reach that far. Let's catch up to speed while you guys were away. So what I did is I made a measurement and I cut a board and I cut. And I got the right measurement across the frame rail, and that's inside the bracket to inside the bracket on the opposite side. So this right here will give me my line that I need to build my mount to come off of this riser to the runner to come to this mount here. So right now I have it jacked up. I had to get the transfer case underneath. So now, just to be on the safe side, before I finish this mount, I'm gonna go ahead and drop this board here, get the transfer mounted to the trans, get the frame level back out, just to make sure there's nothing that's keeping it from clearing. It looks like it should be fine. Let's check it out. All right, so you see we have the transfer case in, went very smoothly. It clears both sides of the frame rail. It clears the mount on trans and the transfer case. And this is a serviceable item, so you can remove the drive shaft, you can remove the transfer case, unbolt the cross member, unbolt the trans, slide the cross member back, remove the trans, and reverse the process to put it back in. So all in all, I'm pretty happy. Let's get this transfer case back out of the way and get our measurement on our riser and get to cutting. Sheesh, we got that bad boy out of there. Okay, so this gets us back to the point that we can put our board in that goes inside frame rail to inside frame rail, inside the bracket that'll actually bolt on to the frame rail. We'll get this good and centered up with our brackets forward and reverse. So we've got it pretty centered left to right. We've got it flush with the end of the transmission. We got the transmission sitting at 3.6 degrees. We've got the frame rail sitting at 0.6 degrees, which is our ride height. We've got our template board sitting square, 90 degrees. So we're ready to mark. So now that we have everything set up where it needs to go, we need to mark a line on the bottom of this temporary cross member, and that'll be the bottom part of our runner that'll come over to the frame rail. So we'll do that on both sides. And now we need to build those sides. So let's get some material. We got to get this thing wrapped up soon. So this is our right side, this is our left side, and remember, we need to make sure that this template here is inside bracket to inside the bracket. And we need to get this measured at 17 inches, because that is our center point. Put a little mark here on the 17. So back to 17 inches on our line here. Coming up to this mark. We're going to center this board at 17 on our line. There's our inside of frame rail to inside of frame rail. So what that'll do is give us a point to measure from inside this cross member riser over to the inside of this bracket here. So this measurement here would actually be what we need to cut for. 7 3/4. So setting up a quick visual here, this is about what we would look like. We have this on the inside of the frame rail, sitting just shy of 34 inches. This plate will be sitting on the bottom of the inside of the frame rail, flat on this line here. We'll be dropping roughly 6 inches down from the inside bottom of the frame rail to the bottom of the cross member. Then we can get our last measurement before we cut. And we're looking 5 3/4, 5 3/4. So we know that's our mark. We need to get our 45s cut in our runner, and we need to get the 45 cut in the riser. That'll bring this out to where the frame rail is. So let's work on getting these two pieces cut left and right, total of 4. So we are making progress here. So quick little recap. The inside frame rail width is just shy of 34 inches. We've got this cross member centered on the 17-inch mark. We've got our runners to bring it over to the clearance to clear the transmission on left and right. We've got our riser cut to our height, which is at 6 and 8, because we're using 2-inch stock. And we've got from outside mount to outside mount, just right inside of that 34-inch mark. So the only thing left that we need to do now is we need to get a measurement from this point here to where the flange will sit on the inside of the frame rail. And with that, it needs to be the same on both left and right. So we are at 7 3/4 on this side, and we are at 7 3/4 on this side. So we are dead nut center. So basically at this point, we're ready to cut a 90 here with a 45 here and get this thing wrapped up. Let's make light work of this. Got this new little sprinkle here. Well, that worked out a little bit better than expected. Still got some work to do, it looks like. So yeah, we've got our runners cut. Now we need to get them trimmed down to fit on this 45 here and trim our edge down in the center to make sure it seats firmly down in that angle. So yeah, a little bit more trimming to do.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
So with a little bit of coaching, we're starting to get shape of this cross member here. So as you can see, we have our risers and our runners coming over to the frame rail supports. So basically where we're at now is that we need to get these edges beveled down, get a few tacks into place to lock it in, and then we'll need to center these frame rail supports to those runners centered. That way we can get bolts top and bottom on front and back, total of 4 on each one of them, 8 on the entire cross member. So I'm digging it. Put this right here to get it in square. And we put a little fish plates here. Some fish plates here. I think that'll look good, Jimmy. All right, so we're back on the cross member for GYMRIGGED. As you can see, most of the items are finished up on the list here. We've got a few more that's a thorn in our side, and that's basically going to be the fish plates and also the gussets on the corners here. So once we get that wrapped up, I believe we'll be ready to get it painted and get it back in. Okay, so I believe we've come up with a plan here for the pattern, and as of right now, I'm looking to put the L's on both sides of it, so we'll need 8 of the L's front and back, and then we'll have the little gusset here that's basically just a triangle, and we'll need 4 of those. So we've got a few pieces to cut out. Quite awesome. So as you can see, we're wrapping up. We've got our gussets and our fish plates cut out. Now, one thing I noticed that the CNC did, the cut and cut, it didn't do a very good job on these edges. So we need to go back with a little grinding disc and a buffing wheel and clean them up and get them prepped to actually weld them on. Boiling frog. All right, so that wraps up the gussets and the fish plates. We've got them cleaned up, ready to weld on. So I think it's time to put some welds through this so we can get that 6-liter and ND 4500 back in the frame for the last time. Let's get it. So today is the day. We've got the cross member sitting here warming up to help that little 110er out. We've got our gussets and fish plates here, so I believe we're ready to put some glue on this. Oh shit, cut. All right, a little addition I added was using gloves. Put that mammy jammy right there. Lock it in place. Perfect. A little arched up there. We'll get us a little hot spot right there and hold it in place. Juicy. All right. Well, that's not recommended by top breeders. Oh. All right. 1 down, 7 more to go. Burnt my damn finger. Messed up my flow. Well, that's good. This is gooder, so let's try goodest. Sorry, guys. You saw it coming, though. It was like, well, let's send it over to the grinding department. Went through a little rough patch there, but I think we fought through it. Hell, none of them's good or goodest. Ah, got a few gussets still. Forgot about those. Some bitches. This here is a turning point, getting this engine set back in. So we've got the gussets and the fish plates on. So we'll go one final test, and then at that point, we're ready to put some paint on it. Engine trans back in, and most of the front drive line is taken care of. So come along. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's a core support, that's a trans mount, the cab mounts, A-arms, and I think we've got most of the roughness out of the way. So now we can start some bolt-on items. Whew, finally. Nice. So we've got the cross member cleaned up with the acetone. Everything went well. We didn't blow ourselves up, so we're ready to move on to the next step. So what we need to do now is get this converted over to a primer state. So
what do you think about this?
I love it.
What about this?
I love it more.
How about this?
I love it.
all right, so that's our build of our cross member for GYMRIGGED here. And I want to thank you for following along and taking this tour with me. Hopefully you enjoyed it just as much as I did. And with that in mind, if you have any feedback on how you could help a person out and other future viewers on what they can do to improve their build with this, please drop a comment below. But likewise, if you found something that was a takeaway that you would see to be helpful on your build, please drop that comment also. So thanks for following along, and we'll see you next time. But right now, we need to get this 6-liter and 4500 over in the truck. Bam, look at that.
What do you think about this?
I love it.
What about this?
I love it more.
How about this?
I